The Florida Panthers come out flat in their third and final matchup against the Boston Bruins in only their third to last game of the season. On today's edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, Jacob Winans joins me on this Winans Wednesday to discuss the loss and how we feel about Bobrovsky, the injury updates to Radko, Gudas, and Anton Lundell, and the whole playoff picture, all on today's episode of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast.
Your Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into this Wednesday, April 27th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We're your team every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. I'm Armando Velez from PantherParkway.com, and you can follow me on Twitter at MondoMan12. Follow the show account on Twitter at LO_FLA Panthers. And thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. Don't forget to also follow the national show, Locked On NHL, and the Crosscheck NHL show with Andrew Berkshire and Mary Clark will be covering all the regular season activities around the National Hockey League. So, Cats fans, the third to last game of the season, magic number for the Florida Panthers is still 3 points at this moment in time. For those who do not happen to catch this episode live after the game, we're live on YouTube for the people who are catching this. The result of Avalanche versus Blues, we have no knowledge of it. Right now, it is a 0-0 game at the end of the first intermission in that game. So right now, the magic number stands at 3 in a game that the Florida Panthers really came out flat in this one. But despite the Florida Panthers coming out flat, I am kind of unbothered by it, to be quite honest. And let's talk about more of this game and more of the overview of this season. And here to gonna bring in my guest, Jacob Winans, on this edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Jacob, welcome back to the show once again. And wasn't a fun one tonight, but I'm unbothered by it. How about yourself?
Yeah, tonight's game, they came out really flat. They didn't seem to be all too bothered by putting together a playoff effort against the playoff team. So honestly, for me, it was just about get out of that game healthy and keep our bodies going for the playoffs. A little bit of a spot of bother, though, is the Avalanche actually just scored. Val Nichushkin got them on the board, so they are up 1-0. That may affect the President's Trophy race. But other than that, not too much of a big cause for concern tonight.
Yeah, I just got that notification just as you spoke about it. And other scores around the league is Dallas and VGK are tied 2-2 right now in their game out of Western playoff implications on that side. So really, we're so used to the Florida Panthers dominating the opposition as far as possession, but everything the Boston Bruins did to in their game on Tuesday night was really about taking away the neutral zone. I mean, we saw that just in let's just get right into it. Those 2 goals in a 6-second span by the Boston Bruins. Eric Holla, former Florida Panther. Eric Holla, part of the Vincent Trocheck trade on an expiring deal. And of course, shortly after, Taylor Hall, the first one, Radko Gudas just gets beat on that one. And then the second one, Mackenzie Weegar gets a turnover. And then lots of chances and then big chances on Bobrovsky, where Bobrovsky was stopping so many pucks right before that. And then the Florida Panthers just didn't do him any favors tonight.
Yeah, that was pretty much a nightmare 6-second span, giving up 2 goals that quickly. It's very rare to see that in the NHL, especially from a team of the Panthers caliber. So definitely not something we're going to see going forward, but it just kind of played into the general lack of hustle, lack of mental focus. Radko Gudas had a big mental error on that first goal. Weegar has an error on the second one. You can't have those in the playoffs, but it feels like tonight it was just kind of going through the motions.
Yeah, and I kind of felt that way also when talking about when dis, when discussing about Sunday's game versus Tampa Bay. Um, of course, the same issue, kind of the same issue got brought up, but of course the Panthers are just at this point just like you said earlier, just trying to get out healthy right before the playoffs. I mean, with no 2 months from now, if the Florida Panthers are in the Eastern Conference Final, nobody is going to be thinking about these last 3 games of the season for the Cats. And of course, with the Florida Panthers having one of the best road records in the NHL, just right behind Washington, they're gonna fall a little bit short of getting 60 wins for the season, but still doesn't take away the fact of what the Florida Panthers have been doing in this second half of the season, and just continuing to take precautionary action if needed. I mean, we saw it with Carter Verhaeghe taking a maintenance day. I mean, Maxim Mammon got a maintenance day today as well. Mason Marchment got a maintenance day as well. So, I mean, it's just about being smart at this point. And speaking of being smart, Anton Lundell and Radko Gudas both had they got a little dinged up tonight. The Anton Lundell took a hit from Jake DeBrusk right in front, an upper body injury for Anton Lundell, and both of them I was thinking precautionary. That was my hope. And then lo and behold, when Andrew Brunette spoke to the media right after the game, thankfully everything that we had hoped that of it being precautionary came to be true. So no harm, no foul when it comes to those little dings by Radko Gudas and Anton Lundell.
Exactly. That was a big thing in this game. We lost both of those players, and it was announced at the beginning of the third period they wouldn't return. So everyone's just kind of hoping, like, hopefully this isn't anything serious. We just need all of our healthy bodies to be ready for game one. So that's the biggest news out of tonight's game, is the fact that both of those guys are going to be okay and should be ready to go for game one. And we hope for more of the same in the last 2 games. You don't want to lose anyone in meaningless hockey. You want everyone ready to go for playoff time. And yeah, those maintenance days you mentioned, those are going to come in handy. I was kind of happy Lomberg got a 1-game suspension, even though it was kind of stupid. Sit him out for a game, let him rest. So it's not a big issue. And it's good that we lucked out that it was minor injuries, and I would really hope that we could potentially rest Barkov and Huberdeau at least for one of the final 2 games, especially with the Art Ross race leaning heavily towards McDavid now. There's really nothing for Huberdeau to play for.
Yeah, when I stopped checking the game for the Oilers Penguins game, when I stopped looking at the details of the game when it was 2-1, I saw McDavid got when it was 3-1, excuse me, I saw McDavid had 2 points out of those 3 goals. I don't know what he ended up being. So Huberdeau did not get a point tonight. So it looks like that race is all but over, but for Jonathan Huberdeau to get the Art Ross. But I want to get into kind of the time on ice for the Florida Panthers and how Andrew Brunette has distributed it. And when players aren't playing the time on ice that they're used to, like the Barkovs, the Huberdeaus, it kind of feels like they're kind of out of routine based on the distribution of it. So getting going for those guys was something that didn't really surprise me, because they're not used to playing those amount of minutes. And let's take a look for a little bit, Jacob, when it comes to the ice time screen sharing for anyone on the YouTube. Like, just look, with the exception of Anton Lundell, you had to make a little bit of adjustments based on the ice time. Nobody surpassed more than 19 minutes as far as the forward. Sam Reinhart. Speaking of Sam Reinhart, he got another power play goal for this one. By the way, in Sam Reinhart's first 19 games as a Florida Panther, he got 11 points, and now he's averaging over a point per game on the season. So what a run Sam Reinhart has been for the Cats after game 19. And let's look at the defense as well. Nobody played over 25 minutes. Of course, you had to make a few adjustments with Gudas as well, distributing those minutes, but nobody over 25 minutes. Of course, when Aaron Ekblad's in the lineup, you see that time on ice go as far as like 27, 28 sometimes for Aaron Ekblad. So I got to give a lot of credit to Andrew Brunette going through the growing pains of, and it's funny because Boston, that was only his second game as a head coach, the very first matchup, and a lot has changed since. So it's crazy to see the maturation process of Andrew Brunette and putting the type of time on ice in a game like today, despite the loss. I'm pretty pleased.
Yeah, definitely. You can't have them overexerting players at this stage in the season when we have everything locked up already. We don't really have a whole lot to play for in the standings. So I was happy to see that it was pretty balanced, and came out today. Ekblad was skating with the team at morning skate, so him getting back in the lineup, hopefully for game one, takes a lot of the pressure and a lot of the hard minutes off of the defense. And I'm really looking forward to seeing how that plays out defensively, where they can get a little bit more of an even split. And I feel like Forsling and Uyghur's games can take off even further. Ben Sherratt can settle in a little bit. It should be a really interesting look come game one. And the ice time right now is really beneficial to that because everyone should be relatively fresh.
Yeah, interesting to see how the last two will go, especially if you still have a chance to get that President's Trophy by the time Friday comes. I think I don't want to look too far ahead, but the Panthers aren't traveling to Montreal tonight, and they're not going to be they're going to be traveling later into the day tomorrow for their game. So it's just another way of just keeping these players rested. I mean, think about players for overnight flights versus getting a good night's sleep the day before a flight, so you're not like over tiring yourself. Because it's funny because Chris Pronger, who's awesome on Twitter, in my opinion, he talks about the travel and how it takes a mental toll on players. And by the way, I said Montreal, I meant to say Ottawa for their next game. Montreal is on Friday, Ottawa is Thursday, but kind of it takes the pressure a little bit off the Florida Panthers traveling with them having practice tomorrow at TD Garden versus traveling overnight and then getting maybe like 4 or 5 hours of sleep.
Yeah, definitely. It's one of those minor details that we don't really think about away from the game, and it really plays a big part, especially this time of year where guys are beat up and tired, and you really need them rested for the playoffs. So I think it's a smart decision, and I'm glad you mentioned that Chris Pronger thread. Anyone who hasn't read that, I highly recommend it. He was talking about how he was a rookie, and they flew commercial back then, so he was a 6'6" rookie sitting in middle seats, traveling to away games. It's pretty funny, but yeah, I definitely second the decision to not travel tonight and let him practice in Boston tomorrow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. So we're going to discuss more about this game. We're going to discuss more about our feelings of Sergei Bobrovsky heading into the playoffs. We're going to talk about that more on this Winans Wednesday edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. But first, we're going to tell you all about HelloFresh. With HelloFresh, you get farm-fresh, pre-portioned ingredients and seasonal recipes delivered right to your doorstep. Skip trips to the grocery store and count on HelloFresh to make home cooking easy, fun, and affordable. That's why it's America's #1 meal kit. Get farm-fresh seasonal produce and easy-to-make recipes delivered right to your door every week. Ingredients travel from the farm to your doorstep in under a week, so they always arrive fresh, all without a trip to the grocery store or farmer's market. Go to HelloFresh.com and use code /LockedOn16 and use code LockedOn16 to get up to 16 free meals and 3 free gifts. Once again, go to HelloFresh.com /LockedOn16 and use code LockedOn16 for up to 16 free meals and 3 free gifts. HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit. Back on this Winans Wednesday edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. I'm Armando Velez. I got Jacob Winans here from PantherParkway.com on this Winans Wednesday edition. And Jacob, I unfortunately got a notification on my phone just as I was reading the ad. Colorado's up 3-0 on St. Louis. So looks like the magic number is going to stay at 3 for the President's Trophy. The Florida Panthers still are well in control of their destiny at this point in time for the President's Trophy. But let's still focus on this game. We'll worry about that come Thursday. But let's talk a little bit about Sergei Bobrovsky. We spoke about it a little bit at the top, how odd man rushes was a thing for the Boston Bruins. The Florida Panthers, just in the neutral zone, were just very sloppy, lots of turnovers. Sam Bennett, not the best game for him and not the best stretch for him. He only having 2 points in the last 8 games, lots of turnovers in the offensive zone as well. But Sergei Bobrovsky, just an incredible night for Sergei Bobrovsky for him. And I don't know if this is his last start before the postseason begins, but I feel really damn good about what I saw out of Bob tonight. I mean, consecutive penalty kills late in that third period, and I believe I saw like 5 good chances in both of them back to back, and Bobrovsky was able to stop all of them. So I feel good about him. What about you?
Yeah, I think Bob's in a good place right now going into the playoffs. I think he's the clear number one. He's separated himself now from Spencer Knight, who was having a really hot stretch. Bob has kind of gotten his game together lately, and tonight was another good example. He made a ton of good saves on the penalty kill. Aside from maybe the third goal where he gave up a questionable rebound, he really wasn't at fault for much of anything in this one. He had a really solid game, and he's had a good stretch lately. So I think he's in a good spot heading into the playoffs, definitely.
Mm-hmm. And I wrote an article on PantherParkway.com about where the goalie situation stands for the Panthers. For those who want to go check it out, go to PantherParkway.com, and I talk about how long Sergei Bobrovsky's leash is, and I think it's a lot longer this time around than last year, based on the regular season performance. Of course, the playoffs are a little bit of a different animal, but the way we've seen Bobrovsky come back this year, I mean, a little bit of context about Spencer Knight not being pulled at all until the Tampa Bay game on Sunday. That was the first time that happened. The few other times that Spencer Knight I thought could have been pulled was Bobrovsky. There might have been an injury in the Ottawa game. He was definitely hurt in November when they had that back-to-back early on. But Bobrovsky coming in on Sunday as well. Of course, Tampa Bay was still lighting up the Panthers. Of course, getting them on the power play, but still playing great at even strength. I'm feeling good. And game 1 tomorrow. It's funny because last year we were a little shaky about saying Bobrovsky, but he was still the answer of who was starting game 1. This time around, it's not even a debate.
Yeah, he's really been one of the top goaltenders in the year this season. The difference isn't so much like the underlying stats or the numbers don't jump off the page at you, but he consistently gives them a chance to win. We've seen a lot of games where the Panthers have come out kind of slow, and he'll keep them in it in the first period. He started to make some of those really timely saves when the Panthers need a big save, regardless of the scoreboard. And the Panthers can score goals with the best of anyone. They're never out of a game goal scoring wise. They just need that timely save here and there, and they can score their way out of trouble. So I feel good about Bob going into game 1, definitely.
Yeah, I feel good about it as well. Usually we save the scores around the league for the final segment of the show, but there's a few scores that did go final around the NHL. So based on playoff implications for the Florida Panthers and based on their possible first round opponent, well, let's start on the opposite side of the Eastern Conference. The Carolina Hurricanes defeat the New York Rangers 4-3. So the Carolina Hurricanes have clinched the Metro Division. So the New York Rangers are likely locked in. I don't have the standings right in front of me, but looks like they are locked into that number 2 spot in the Metro. Edmonton, we spoke about the Art Ross race likely being over. They beat Pittsburgh 5-1. An Alexander Ovechkin less Washington Capitals team lost to the New York Islanders 4-1. He has an upper body injury. Don't know if he's going to play on Thursday neither. But the Washington Capitals have a game in hand on the Pittsburgh Penguins. Even though they still have to win that game in hand, it's not looking good for Washington right now. I mean, let's go back. Let's also go back to opening night against the Pittsburgh Penguins of how well Casey DeSmith played against the Florida Panthers. It took them until overtime. Both of them faced both Bob and DeSmith faced multiple shots on goal. I'm still on the whole I want to face Washington over Pittsburgh, but even Randy Moeller said on the broadcast that the Panthers don't care who they face. And after the Boston Bruins defeated the Florida Panthers, there's no possibility that the Panthers can play Boston in round 1. So right now, it is Pittsburgh or Washington. Your thoughts, sir?
Yeah, I don't think either is an easy matchup by any means. Regardless of who you play against, you're going against a Stanley Cup champion and a Hall of Famer. So it's going to be tough regardless. Now, as far as Washington's concerned, the Ovechkin injury is something to keep an eye on. Obviously, he's going to play game 1, but we don't know if he'll be at 100% by then. Also in their game tonight, TJ Oshie left for a little bit and came back, but apparently, according to their media staff, he did not look the same. He was a little bit gimpy and limping around the rest of the game. So something to keep an eye on there with TJ Oshie, another key player on that team. Now with Pittsburgh, Tristan Jarry's out, not necessarily expected back relatively soon, given that he has a broken bone in his foot, I believe it is.
Mm-hmm. That's the report from
right.
Frank Zaravelli.
Right. So I don't love playing against Sidney Crosby, and Casey DeSmith recently had a 50-save shutout. He's on a roll lately, so either way, it's not going to be easy, but I think I'm leaning towards Washington.
Yeah, I'm with you there based on the health, based on the goaltending situation in Washington. So that's kind of where I'm at in that. There's a few minutes left in Dallas VGK. Gonna do a quick update. According to NHL.com, 32 seconds left in the third. So if the Vegas Golden Knights allow the Stars to get at least a point, it's going to be over for the Vegas Golden Knights. I don't see a way that they had to win tonight's game in regulation for any chance to make it to the playoffs. And it's funny because in back-to-back days, two villains of sports are going down. I mean, we saw the Brooklyn Nets get swept by the Boston Celtics on Tuesday, and now we're seeing the fall of Vegas and how quick and how kind of the shortcuts that they were trying to take to build a contender, and it's costing them in kind of like their farm as well. So it's kind of like a what goes around comes around for Vegas.
Yeah, definitely. A few former Panthers ties with that team. Obviously, Pete DeBoer behind the bench, Marchessault and Riley Smith there. So, yeah, it's a team that we keep an eye on as Panther people. That's a team that none of us really like, and you have to be honest. It's kind of nice to see them fall apart a little bit. It kind of started last year when Nick Suzuki gave them hell and they traded him for Pacioretty. So, yeah, don't like that they tried to shortcut their way to being a contender, and now they're kind of paying the price for it.
Mm-hmm. For sure. And it's pretty sweet seeing that. And I still think they have a good future regardless of this season. They're gonna have to clear some cap as well, and hopefully they learn a few lessons based on the whole Evgeny Dodonov situation.
Another former Panther there. Yep, another former Panther, and they did him wrong for sure.
Mm-hmm, that's for sure. But we're going to transition over to the next segment where we're going to talk about a new TV deal for the Florida Panthers and a Florida Panther who has a nomination for an award for the end of year award. But first, we're going to tell you all about Built Bar. And Jacob, actually, I'm going to full screen myself for a little bit because I actually have a Built Bar in my actual possession right here. Jacob, have you ever tried a Built Bar by any chance?
I have. Actually, thanks to your ads, I did give them a shot.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
So yeah, Built Bar is the best. It's the best tasting protein bar out there in the market. I mean, I asked people, have you tried the puffs? Have you tried the puffs, Jacob?
That's the one I tried. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So
Mhm.
but if you're out there and you're listening to this, if you haven't, then you're missing out on Built Bar's best tasting bars, because puffs are the first ever protein infused marshmallow. They're fluffy, marshmallowy. They're not just a protein bar. They treat and covered in 100% real chocolate. And Built Bars, of course, Jacob knows this, but if you, the listener, don't know this, they're covered in 100% real chocolate. Yes, puffs included, 100% real chocolate, low calorie, high protein. Replace your candy bar with these. Built Bars are better than said bars that I cannot say due to copyright reasons and because it's YouTube. They're a typical candy bar, which could any typical candy bar is anywhere between 200 to 300 calories. Compare Built Bar to a regular candy bar, which usually has around over 200 to 300 calories as well. The flavors that Built Bar has, the one that I have in my hand is a raspberry flavor. But other ones include mint brownie, coconut almond, and for this month, white chocolate cookies and cream. That one's a good one as well. So for anyone out there, go to builtbar.com, built.com, and use promo code LOCK15 to get 15% off your order. That's one that I use as well, so you can use it as well. So use promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at built.com. Third and final segment here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. I'm Armando Velez. I got Jacob Winans here on this Winans Wednesday edition of the show. And so, some South Florida news as far as the sports scene. The Miami Heat defeat the Atlanta Hawks. They beat them 97-94. It was announced that Game 1 for the second round of the Miami Heat will be on Monday. I tweeted out on my personal account saying, "Dear NHL, the Miami Heat play Game 1 of their first round series on Monday. Make the Florida Panthers play Game 1 on the Tuesday, because we want to support both teams. We want both these fan bases to be both on both the bandwagon of the basketball team and the hockey team. We don't have any. Some fans go after." Some basketball fans go after the hockey fans, and then some hockey fans go after the basketball fans, which I don't necessarily understand. I think if you're from the region, you should support both teams. That's just my 2 cents of it. But I'm hoping, Jacob, that Game 1, if the NHL is smart, and of course the ownership and the front office has something to say with that as well, because they want people to attend Game 1 as well. I'm hoping that Game 1 is on Tuesday night.
Yeah, definitely hoping for that. It's 2 franchises that have kind of been intertwined since the very beginning when they shared an arena. So to make fans pick or choose which one they want to go support on any given night would just feel kind of wrong. So hopefully they offset the games, stagger them, and that way when I have my off day between Game 1 and 2, I can head down to FTX and check out a Heat game too. So yeah, but definitely really cool to see the Heat advance tonight. Without Jimmy Butler and Kyle Lowry, that's a big win. So definitely
Absolutely.
Let's go Heat.
Go Heat. So, but yeah. So hopefully there's of course we can't control everything, and a lot of times during the regular season we have that. So I miss a lot of Heat games. So hopefully there's a lot of a split between the schedule makers. But speaking of schedule makers, speaking of TV. Bally Sports and Sinclair has announced that the Florida Panthers, in their new deal, they're going to make up to 3 times as much revenue that they are right now with the franchise. And even though it is a cap sport with the Florida Panthers and the NHL, it doesn't necessarily affect how they're spending right now, with the cap expected to go up only $1 million. But this helps the Florida Panthers in other areas outside of their franchise. It helps them in their marketing. It helps them build things around the new practice facility, which they were already doing before this deal, unless they forecasted what this deal would be. But it creates multiple opportunities to grow the game in South Florida, and even possibly a new arena in downtown Fort Lauderdale. So this is a big win for this franchise.
Yeah, it's always nice to see them. Anytime you talk about the Panthers and increasing revenue, it's not something we've really heard a whole lot in the Panthers' history. We've always heard of them as a team in the negative. So the new TV deal is a big thing for the Panthers going forward, and hopefully that definitely transitions to a new arena downtown at some point, because you have to think the new practice facility being there, they have to have an eye towards that area, and I think that would be great for the growth of the fan base.
Yeah, and some people might think about because they combined it with the Heat back in the 90s, that is like, why not do FTX again? But it's funny because as somebody who is from Dade County but only watched new Panthers hockey from Broward, it feels wrong for me personally for them to be outside of Broward County. I've learned to love that this Panthers team is in that region and have that little, and then being in Sunrise, of course, the pride that it takes from a fan in that little small town of Sunrise. And then if they were to win the Stanley Cup, their franchise value goes up as well. And that helps as well. That changes generations of fans as well, that they grew up knowing that this was a team in Broward County that, with the increase in franchise value, that it also helps them increase their chances of moving to a better central location closer to a highway, instead of some people going off 95 and then going a little west, or even Dade County with 836 and 826 to Sawgrass.
Yeah, definitely. The location of the current arena, it's not perfectly placed, being so far west by almost to the Everglades, but I like the point you made there about it being in Broward County. I think it's important to have the team in Broward so you can expand just beyond just Miami. I think the Miami sports market expands to Broward, so to have a team there centralized in Broward really helps to kind of use their own catchphrase, grow the territory. I think it's important to have it in Broward still, and a downtown Fort Lauderdale idea sounds really, really good to me.
I like every thing about it, just the sound of it when it comes to that. So last topic I want to get into in this live edition of Locked On Panthers is Anthony Duclair. He was nominated for the Bill Masterson Award, which talks about perseverance and, of course, things that said player has gone through. Every team has their own nominee. Notables are Kevin Hayes of the Philadelphia Flyers, who experienced the death of his brother, former Florida Panther Jimmy Hayes. One was Carey Price of the Montreal Canadiens, going through his substance abuse program of the NHL. And not sure if Anthony Duclair is going to necessarily win the award, but I do want to make a little bit of a case for Anthony Duclair. As we on this podcast, on this episode, we have two minorities here talking hockey, and also the story of Anthony Duclair given up on by so many teams to being given a chance by Bill Zito, coming over here after a career season in Ottawa, being a 20-goal scorer, an all-star, negotiating his own contract, and now he has a place to stay in a system consistently for the Florida Panthers. And I think that's my campaign speech on if he is chosen as the recipient for the whole NHL. And I know Carey Price is a more household name, and of course Kevin Hayes as well, in a bigger market like Philadelphia, seeing what he went through with his brother, which we still don't know the details, and of course that should remain private. But that's my 2 cents on, and my campaign on Anthony Duclair possibly being the winner.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely 100% support Kevin Hayes and the entire Hayes family after what happened with Jimmy. He was a great Florida Panther, especially in the community and the locker room. And then same as Carey Price. He's always been one of my favorites. So to see him overcome the issues he's had this year has really been awesome to see him get back on the ice. But as far as Anthony Duclair, whether he wins the award or not, the nomination itself is huge, and it's a great honor. And when you think about perseverance to hockey, he's definitely someone who comes to mind. Getting traded so many times, having to deal with adversity from even his own coaches, like John Tortorella, who told him he couldn't comprehend hockey. That's a direct quote. And really kind of trashed him. And he's been through a lot to get to this point in the NHL. And he's definitely a fantastic ambassador for the game, especially in a very minority area in South Florida. He gives a lot of people someone to look up to as a minority hockey player, and he does it the right way. So definitely 100% support Duclair getting the nomination. He's really everything you want in an ambassador to the game here in Florida.
And that smile is contagious.
Yeah.
Not gonna lie, it's a contagious smile. Like hearing him talk, you like, just when the cameras point at him, you don't see him angry, or you usually see him smiling. And of course, you spoke about the region being mostly minority in South Florida, the gateway to Latin America and the Caribbean there. And it's just for you said it best. A minority that people can look up to. And if of course the Florida Panthers being in a playoff series, it's going to increase the fan base already. And of course, winning a series, and of course having a region which is mostly minority, it's gonna inspire people to watch the NHL. It's going to inspire people to put on skates for the first time, possibly, especially if we have some youngins listening, watching the Panthers for the first time. It's just a great era of Florida Panthers hockey. And yeah, sure, they didn't clinch the President's Trophy tonight. They still very well could on Thursday night, but still, this is an era of Panthers hockey that is just, regardless of whether they win the Stanley Cup or not, it is a fun time to just watch this team and just how they grow in the community.
Yeah, for sure. The community outreach efforts have increased as the team has gotten better, and I feel like it personally, just being at the arena and everything, you can really see the growth in not just the numbers but also the demographics, the cultures that are showing up to games now. It's not the same as it used to be. It's not a monolith. It's a lot of different people that are coming to games now, and we've seen that increase with the numbers and people just happening to learn the game now. So it's really good to see, and I think Anthony Duclair is kind of the face of that and that new transition from the franchise. So definitely a huge honor for him today.
Absolutely, and hopefully we see him as a winner. But like Jacob said, even if he doesn't, then it's the fact that he got nominated speaks volumes to who he is as a human being. So Jacob, a dud tonight, a dud the last two nights for the Florida Panthers in their games, but still, you know how unbothered I was by the loss. I said this in the chat, but you might have seen it, but I want to say this for the podcast. You want to know how unbothered I was? You want to know?
Go for it.
I bought 3 rats on FLAteamshop.com just now. It's like, okay, I'm in playoff mode. It's just forget about tonight, move on, and playoff time is almost here. So, sure, it doesn't look good right now, but once game 1 happens, I think with how bought in the Andrew Brunette has his team, I think they're still in a very good spot.
Yeah, to be honest with you, I'm right there with you. Get your throwing arm ready. Personally, it's not a big deal. The Heat advanced tonight, and we're in playoff mode now. So that the next time we record together, we'll be already in a playoff series. So I'm just looking forward to that.
Yep, less than a week away, my dude. So I'm very excited about it. So thank you once again for joining me on this edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. For everyone listening, you can follow Jacob at Jacob Winans 8 on Twitter. Follow him there. See a lot of his Florida Panthers tweets and all South Florida sports, and of course his work at PantherParkway.com. So thank you once again, Jacob, and I'll see you next week.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
And if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast so you'll be notified every single time the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast jumps into your podcast feed. Make sure to also subscribe to Locked On NHL and the Crosscheck NHL show with Andrew Berkshire and Mary Clark, who will be covering all the regular season activities around the National Hockey League. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. And for your second listen of the day, make sure you listen to today's episode of Locked On Fantasy Hockey. Hosts Stu Ronan and Flip Livingstone help you become the expert of your fantasy team. Follow the Locked On Fantasy Hockey podcast on the Odyssey app or wherever you get podcasts. So I'm Armando Velez with Jacob Winans. And you've been listening to Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day.